Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Russell Hill. I'm the host of WTF, and that's What the Fixed Ops to You. We're really excited. I'd like to introduce Charity.
I am the co-host here and the CMO at FixedOPS Marketing. And who do we have today, Russell?
We have, you're in for a real treat. We have Les Silver, who is the CEO of Dynatron, executive chairman, Dynatron, CEO, owner, all the above. Is that correct? Do we get that right, Les?
Pretty much. Basically, I've been able to go into semi-retirement, and my son Lee is the CEO,
Okay.
and I provide a little bit of keeping my eye on him and just keeping him on the straight and narrow. But basically, he's running the company today.
Good. So let me ask you this. So you're married, have kids and grandkids, correct?
14 grandkids.
Oh my gosh. Are your hands full?
We have a gaggle of them. Yes.
A gaggle. I love that.
Yeah, that's probably the most rewarding part of this stage of life, is being able to interact with those little ones as they come up.
I totally agree. I have 3 kids and 4 grandkids, and all of our kids and spouses and grandkids live within 9 minutes of us. So my wife, who recently retired after 32 years in the car business as a controller, she is now a full-time Gigi. That's what she does. I'm Papa and she's Gigi. What do they call you, Les?
They call me Gramples. Grandpa Les. And my wife, her name is Andy. They call her Grandy. So
I love that.
We at least don't get confused because there aren't any other Gramples or Grandys around.
That's a first for me too. So that's good. Very exclusive and proprietary, right?
Exactly.
So where do you live?
I split my time between Vegas, generally in the wintertime, and San Diego in the summer.
Which is where you're at today.
Where I am today, yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So with our audience, we've been really blessed with a tremendous audience with some of the people we have on, such as yourself. I kind of like to think you're iconic. It's like, who doesn't know about Les Silver and Dynatron? When it comes to our podcast and our circle, I think most people know your name. Some of this stuff we're going to be asking you about is like second nature to you, but it's real important. Fixed ops, when we, I was in retail side for a long, long time, and then got into the fixed side. And like I said, one of the reasons we created the company, and it happened, we rolled it out a month before COVID hit, and like we were panicking. And so I'd like to start off with just tell us what you do, so our audience knows exactly what Dynatron does.
There are 3 things that the dealership has to concentrate on when it comes to generating more revenue. The first is how many customers they're getting. That's sort of a customer acquisition type activity.
Right.
The second is what are they selling per customer? As you mentioned, your company helps add to the lines on an RO.
Right.
And the third element is what do they charge for the work that they're doing? And over the course of the years, I've been in fixed ops now, providing technology for going on 40 years. I have alternatively focused on each of those 3. The first one was with a company called NewGen, where we provided service marketing to about 7,000 dealers.
I remember them. I remember NewGen. Yeah.
Yeah. The second one was MPI, where we kind of invented the electronic vehicle inspection in order to try to get more on each RO. Dynatron focuses on the third, pricing. Where does the price comes from? Is the price appropriate so that it's not too high where it scares people off, not too low where you're leaving gross profit on the table, but are you optimizing your service pricing? And we're providing that service to getting on 3,000 dealers today. And it's an area of tremendous opportunity. If you can adjust your price by $1, you basically put another dollar to the bottom line. The gross profit carry through is almost 100%, other than a little bit of extra commission. So it's a very, very lucrative area to be focusing on, as long as you don't overdo it. If you get too greedy, you can price yourself out of the market.
Right.
But if you're, if you're sensible on the way you go about your pricing, you can make little adjustments here and there and optimize that price and get a higher effective labor rate than you might otherwise. The thing that many people aren't aware of is that if you do that on your retail work, and if you do that, consistently over the course of the year, once a year you have the opportunity to reach out to the OEM, provide them data on what you're doing on the retail, and the OEM is obligated to match your retail pricing in labor and parts. So it's kind of a triple whammy where you can get more on CP, labor and parts, which then leads to a possible increase in your warranty rate, CP and parts, and then you continue to do that over and over again.
That's crucial, isn't it?
It certainly is.
No.
Of all the things I've done in the industry, and it's been 40 years, this is the one that's probably from my customer, which is the dealer's point of view, the most lucrative. The ROI is crazy. So we're able to generate a lot of extra revenue and profit for our customers.
It sounds, now it's different by different parts of the country and different franchises, right? It's all customizable and a lot of research and detail, correct?
Yeah. Then when it comes to warranty reimbursement, the rules change by OEM and by state. So there's a lot you have to know about how to optimize it. And, we're not trying to either gouge the retail customer or the OEM. It's just fair pricing all around.
Just a balance. Yeah. So how did you get into the automotive industry, Les?
Oh, so long ago. I graduated with a mathematics degree and had no idea what I wanted to do in life. Stumbled onto computer science in my last year of college and decided that this was the early 70s. I'm an old guy. And way back when, it looked like computers could be the thing of the future. So I decided that I would try to go back to school and become educated on computer programming. Needed to make some money and found a friend who said, why don't you come sell cars? And
I'll be darned.
Ended up working for I'm a Canadian. I grew up in Winnipeg, Canada, and went to work for a Lincoln Mercury dealer who allowed me to have the flexibility to go to school and work at the same time. Graduated and continued to work, got married and continued to work in the dealership. It wasn't really called F&I. I was the finance manager.
Right.
Worked with lenders primarily just to get the financing done. And did that for a number of years as well. So really got to know the industry more from the sales side than from the service side. But in the early 70s, that was my thing. Yeah,
I remember we moved. I was born in California, and my dad was vice chancellor of computer services. Well, he ended up being vice chancellor, but he was in charge of computer services for the Dallas County Community College District, which when we first moved here back in the 60s, there was only one. Now there's like 15 or 16 of them. But I remember going downtown with him, and he had this room. It was a huge room with these Amdahl computers. It was very cold in there, and it looked like from a 7-year-old perspective, it looked like it was enormous. And now, of course, you can do more on this today than you could on all that back then. So yeah, it was really quite amazing. IBM punch cards and all that kind of stuff. So that was your era, huh?
That was my era. Yep. Yeah.
I'm not too far behind you.
Heaven forbid you should drop the box of cards and scramble up all your program. You could spend a day trying to get them resorted out.
Absolutely. Les, do you consider yourself an influencer in the automotive industry, and what sort of responsibilities does that title really pose? Because I think a lot of people refer to you as that, an influencer.
Yeah, and you were just on Roundtable, right? And you've been there.
Yeah, I've been on the roundtables, pretty much every one. And
Hello, everybody. Here's a quick word for you all. We know electric vehicles are increasing around the nation, actually around the world. The question we ask ourselves is, are we to fear the EV adoption and what it'll do to fixed operations? So we decided not to speculate, but to gather real data to see how electric vehicles will affect and change fixed operations in the future. Our service department is going to remain the profit center in the future. Find out at NADA 2023 in our workshop how electric vehicles will change fixed operations. We look forward to seeing you there.
on what's important, and just enjoy. Our company has grown significantly over the last number of years. We're about 180 employees, so
Wow.
it's nice to be able to create employment for folks across the country, and those are a good chunk of them are automotive service experts, and a good chunk of them are technology people and other support folks that we have. We, even before the pandemic, had a lot of people that worked out of their homes. So we found it fairly easy to adjust to the pandemic situation. And even today, we have a lot of flexibility where, if you want to come work for us as a consultant working for dealerships, you don't have to move. You don't have to be on an airplane and, or in your car all the time.
Yeah.
Most of the work is done just like we're doing, through Zoom or through other meeting forums.
Boy, has that really evolved since the pandemic. So we have, we're a much smaller company, but we're getting bigger and bigger pretty fast. But we have 22 employees and we have no brick and mortar. Everybody works all over the country, even outside of. Are you in other countries as well, or just the United States?
We're in Canada with a pretty decent presence and a small presence. One of our San Diego-based dealer groups have half a dozen dealerships in Mexico, and we're working with them as well.
Briefly touch on, you said that you're semi-retired, and I noticed that you have tried retirement, but it wasn't quite for you, and I wanted to get more behind that story.
Yeah. My dad passed away a couple of years ago at 93. Worked till he was 89.
Wow.
And I think that staying involved keeps yourself sharp, and I enjoy it. The core business of Dynatron is in good hands with the folks that, my son and the management team that he's put together. But there are other opportunities around the industry that we've gotten involved in, sort of as advisors. There's a company called SciTech that provides service information on smartphones, to the technicians. There's a company called Automation that provides inbound reservations through AI. There's a company called Bailey.
Great company.
I'm involved in all of those as advisors and small investors. So, we think that there's more innovative things that are being done in the industry on the fringe by small companies that we like to get involved in early. And that's mostly what I do, is work on that type of stuff. And it's
True.
fun.
I met a gentleman. His name is Glenn Lundy. I met him at NADA. And he's got quite a presence in a lot of different areas, particularly on social media. But he was talking about how technology has evolved from 1922 to 2022 over the last 100 years. And he said in the next 5 years, it's going to evolve that same 100 years, if not more. I mean, you see it, Les, but you can't keep your fingers out of it, can you?
Yeah. What am I going to do?
Yeah. Well, somebody a long time ago is like, statistics may have changed, but when somebody retires, they live an average 18 months and then they pass away. Well, we work all of our life to get there. And it's almost, I liken it to, you get a brand new car and you park it in the driveway. And if you don't get in it and do something with it, the paint fades and oxidizes, the interior, starts going to shambles, the tires go flat, the battery gets drained, on and on and on. So you just enjoy staying involved. It sounds like.
I do. I do.
Yeah.
And there's lots of very interesting stuff that's going on in the business.
There is.
A lot of innovation, and particularly in fixed ops. It's been the ignored side of the business, relatively speaking, compared to the variable operations in F&I. But I think people are more realizing now than ever just how important it is to the stability of the dealership. And they call it the back end. I prefer to call it the backbone of the business.
Yeah.
And if you have a solid fixed operations, you really can weather a lot of storms that might be difficult to weather otherwise.
Well, I mean, if you just look at the downturn in 08 and what happened, because I've been involved since 85 in the business, and I find, and I'd like to ask you your thoughts on this, but about 80 to 85% of general managers are from the variable side. And it's almost like service parts and accessories was an afterthought until you have a downturn, or how about till you have a pandemic? And the only thing that's essential is service. And of course, we rolled out about that time, and our company has just exploded as a result of that timing. We didn't plan it that way. Who knew a pandemic was coming? But but I see a huge, you got the Ted Ings and the Roundtable that just had 1 or 2 episodes live before the pandemic. And I mean, everything is fixed. That's the future, isn't it?
I believe so. While it only accounts for about 15% of the revenue, it accounts for 50% of the profit, the gross profit of a dealership.
Yeah.
And the sky's the limit on, the dealers still have such a small market share. It's almost tragic how they just let the business go away. They sold the car and they had the opportunity to keep that customer, and they didn't. And they created these little guys like Jiffy Lube and Valvoline, and the other service centers came up really on the discards of the dealership.
Exactly.
And now they've got 75% of the market. So it's getting that back and stopping it from eroding is a great opportunity for the dealers, where it's almost unlimited to what the potential is in that part of the business.
And I see a full court press taking place. I think NADA said for every franchise dealer, there's 16 non-franchise entities like what you're talking about, just waiting to pluck the business, because they know after the warranty period's up, there's a mass defection. And yes, companies like yours, we're being transparent with, I mean, everything is starting to change. Now, it could be just because I'm on that side of it or you're on that side of it, but no, this is what everybody's talking about. There's a lot of change taking place. And Charity came up with this. She read a quote from one of your networks. Nobody likes change except for babies in a wet diaper. And do you think the automotive industry is resistant or accepting of change in general? And what kind of change do you think that's most difficult?
Depends on who you're talking to. I have found that if you have a business case on something, the dealer will listen. And you talk about 08 and 09 and when things were really tough. The dealers, they battened down the hatches and they told their staff, we're not buying anything. They stopped spending unless you got to the dealer themselves.
Right.
Because the dealer, he can say to his staff, forget it, we're not buying anything. Exactly. Unless he wants it. And if he wants it, then, it becomes a whole different story. We grew our business. We were, MPI at the time, all the way through 809 without a blip, largely because we had the opportunity to take advantage of contacts that, there were quite a number of folks that had been working for the OEMs who got laid off in that period of time.
I remember.
Who had great relationships with a lot of dealers who we retained as lead generator door openers for us. And, when you get a call from somebody and trust, you'll spend 5 minutes listening to what they have to say. If you're just trying to cold call on somebody, particularly when times are bad, you'll never get anywhere. Yeah. And we had the ability to create these relationships, which we still have to today. And the dealer gets excited by a value proposition that's real, and they're prepared to invest generally in things that will generate more money.
That's real. Just like
that,
you said. Yeah.
that's real. You know, I've used the analogy of a slot machine in Las Vegas. And if you could find a slot machine where if you put in $1, it gave you 2 back, would that be something you'd be interested in playing? And of course, the answer is yes.
Sure.
You know, if it was guaranteed that you put in $1, you got back 2. Then you ask the question, well, what's your budget? You know, would you do that for $5 or $10 or $1 million? And the answer is that if it was guaranteed and you put $1 in and you got back 2, it wouldn't be how much you got to spend. It would be how fast could you pull the handle. And, you know, that's what we'd like to try to do is say, hey, you know, it's less important what the cost is as to what the return on investment is. And have been quite successful over many years in presenting good business cases that have solid ROI, where it's not BS, but it's proven. And the word gets around very quickly when you've got something like that.
And also, you're a relationship guy. From everything that I know about you, they like you, they trust you, they believe you. You got quite a reputation, and everything is about value, right? Yeah, price is important, but if you don't do a good job, if there's no value there, it doesn't make any difference what the price is. And so it all has to do with relationships and people, right?
As long as you get a chance to tell your story to somebody that can say yes or no, and the story is compelling, and you know it's a real story. In this industry, you know, you've got dealerships where the owner's name's right on the sign, so there's no mystery as to who is it that you have to, you know, figure out how to go talk to.
Right.
And it's really the biggest small business around, because it is a small business because everybody knows everybody.
Boy, and
and that's good and it's bad. You know, if you do a good job for somebody, they'll tell their friends. If you do a poor job, they'll tell their friends. And either way, your reputation is all you got.
it is. No, when I'm the marketing and sales side for the most part, I have a business partner. When we founded this company, he's just dynamic, but because of what I've done in the industry and the relationships I maintain, your character and integrity and those are extremely important. And like you can blow it really fast. And I've seen a lot of people do it, blow it by smoke and mirrors and playing games for the fast buck. And there's no fast way. You have to do it the right way. And it's all about you can have a great widget thingamajigger, that's fine. But if you have a bad reputation and it doesn't work, you're done.
Totally. And, you know, over 40 years, that's one of the things I'm proudest of is, you know, the reputation that we've been able to build in the companies that I've been involved in. We grew, you know, originally it was NewGen, that was the service marketing company. We grew that business to be over 100 million in sales. We grew MPI to be over 100 million in sales, and we're determined that we'll grow Dynatron to that same level over time. But it's one step at a time. Just do a great job every day.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right.
But speaking of your career, Les, you know, even in the last few years, we've seen a lot of major sweeping changes take place. So I wanted to ask you, are there any particular moments or memories that you've come across over the course of your career that particularly stand out, that have really changed automotive or the business in general?
Well, it's, you know, particularly in FixedOPS, it's been just a steady progression of things that have proven to be of value. You know, I mentioned the 3 main drivers of revenue: more customers, selling more per customer, and pricing it right. You know, the notion of those 3 things being important is being recognized more and more by more and more companies. And there's a lot of innovation that's going on. You know, 07, 08, you know, when GM and Chrysler, you know, had their problems, you know, that was a soul searching time, just wondering,
It was.
how's it all going to work out? The pandemic was a soul searching time. And fortunately, for at least for our segment, it accelerated our business quite
It
a
did
bit.
indeed.
Yeah. But, we were very communicative with our staff. We had weekly town hall meetings with all of our staff to talk about what we were seeing, what was going on. We were flexible with our customers and good partners with our customers to help them, through the uncertainty at least. But fortunately, that only lasted for a couple months. Where
Yep.
We had to really buckle down, and we didn't lay off anybody
That's correct.
during that period of time. So, that would probably be the most recent version of a soul searching moment.
Yeah, we learned to adapt and overcome in automotive. I remember I didn't even know it was happening. Our only employee at that time was Charity, and our programmer. But I remember being on the road, and my wife calls and said, "Where you at?" I said, "I'm in Louisiana." And she said, "Get your rear end home right now." And she started to go off into all this stuff, and the world shutting down and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like I was freaking out. I was freaking, and everybody was. But you're right. For us, same thing. It lasted a couple of months. Other people, unfortunately, it affected a lot longer, or they didn't make it at all.
Yeah.
And because service was essential. So we have a lot in common. One, we're both interested in EVs and the impact on the future of fixed operations. What are some of the ways that you believe EVs will affect fixed operations? We love this topic.
Yeah, I think, I did a bit of a seminar for Ted on this one. I don't know if you caught any of it.
We did.
That's where we got this question.
All right.
Yeah. In some areas, there'll be less work available. So that's a potential headwind. But when you only got 25% of the market, the opportunity for increased market share is very significant. And if the dealer does the right job of educating the customer of what the needs are for service of the vehicle at the time of sale, and utilize tools like you've got, I believe that the dealer's going to get a greater share of that potential market than they've ever had if they work at it smartly. So I don't see that there's going to be a problem with volume of service work, even as the world turns more, to EVs, if the dealer is smart and educates the customer. The profession that I've used as the example of how I've built the various capabilities I've had is the dental profession, where I realized a long time ago that the dentists, they were known for pain and suffering, kind of like the dealers in the service department. But they, they changed their business around from wait till you've got a toothache where you need to have it pulled to a maintenance model where time passes and that creates the need. It's not a breakdown, but it's just time and mileage has passed. And, if we want to do the best you can, you want to shift towards a maintenance model. And the dentist did a fabulous job of educating the customer on get your teeth cleaned twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a problem, we'll find it early. Be less painful, less expensive to get it done early. That's the model that, we've used over time.
Yeah.
The dentist, my dentist was an interesting experience. When I first went to him, he set me up for not a checkup, but for a consultation discussion about what my objectives were, what's important to me when it comes to my dental health. Dealers need to be doing that. They need to be understanding and listening to their customers and knowing what the customer's point of view is for the use of the vehicle, how long they plan to keep it. These are things that impact on, in good conscience, what you should be recommending are things that are good value to your customer. And the use of the vehicle and the plan for the vehicle is an important part of that. We need to ask that sooner or later.
I agree. That's what's not happening, but they're starting to pay attention to that right now, meeting the customer where they're at, developing a relationship, the consultative approach. It's much less expensive to understand and for maintenance than it is for major repairs, right? As if you don't take care of just that was such a great analogy with the dentist. And of course, the dentist realized also that I think it's like 10,000 people a day are turning 65. So there was a gold mine down the road too, you know?
Well, the thing that the dentist did, they shifted from repair to maintenance as the primary motivation for customer coming in. But then over time, and the dealers haven't quite got there yet, they broadened their service to go beyond just fixing cars to enhancing them. And, if you think about the accessory market, and if you think about things where customers might have discretionary income that they would use to do something with their vehicle that increases the joy of their ownership experience, there's opportunity there that's still very, very much untapped. There's maintenance, there's repair, and then there's, I call it enhancement. And whether that's enhanced functionality or enhanced appearance or enhanced performance, there are lots of things that the dealers can be doing to get into that part of the business. Now, sometimes they're reluctant because often we see service advisors, who gauge what the customer might be interested in through the lens of their own pocketbook. And if it's not something that they would spend the money on, they're reluctant to be offering it.
So true.
They need to get past that and let the customer decide. Make the offer, let the customer know that there's, good value in the things that are being offered. Let the customer decide.
I think that we haven't even hit the curve of how FixedOPS can adapt and overcome and completely revolutionize and change the way. Of course, it took a long time to get here. It's not going to happen overnight. But people like yourself or other companies like ours, et cetera, we're doing our due diligence. I know that we just left Digital Dealer and we spoke on EV politics and EV adoption into fixed operations. And we've been very blessed to Cherry and I are both speaking at NADA. And as long as I've been in this business, I always hoped I would have an opportunity, especially, either running stores or having companies that I'd get an opportunity, but I expected it wouldn't happen because there's just so many. But we're speaking on EV and how to fix fixed operations in the future. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, we definitely like to ask people what their opinions are on EV and get a feel for what different people think.
Yeah.
So do you think that EV is a forthcoming sweeping change that will just totally take over the automotive industry? Or do you think it's more of gentle waves coming in step by step?
That's a tough one. That's a good one though, Charity.
I think it's going to happen faster than I would have thought 5 years ago. I think, you're getting the sense that people talk about 2030 being about, 50% of the new vehicles being put on the road are going to be EVs. And based on what the OEMs have committed to their lineup, they're just going to be a lot of EV choices, which in many cases is going to drive that. So I think the chances of it being in that 40 to 50% range by 2030 for vehicles being sold is probably going to happen. That's still, though, a small fraction of the vehicles on the road that need to be serviced.
That's right.
So when that becomes the preponderance of vehicles that the dealerships or the aftermarket will have to service, is going to be out quite a bit from there. So I guess the answer is a bit of both.
Yeah, really. I see commercials all the time. You think everything is electric, but there's we don't even have time to go into There's so much information about it and what's happening and the adoption rate and, mileage going from 300 to 400, 300 average to 600 or 700 lithium ion versus all the other types of hybrid type electric.
State.
Right. Yeah. There's so much coming and, we evolve and we adapt fastest technology. So let me ask you, do you have an electric vehicle?
I do not.
Yeah, I don't either. Would you?
Would I? Yeah. My son has the Mustang EV and loves it. But I haven't, the cars that I own are 4 and 5 years old.
Mhm.
So I haven't been in the market for a new vehicle. I guess I did think about trading one and consider it a hybrid. Range to me still is the big thing.
Mhm.
And
Range anxiety is what we call it.
yeah, I haven't got to the point where I feel totally comfortable. If I'm going back and forth from San Diego to Vegas, quite a bit, I want to make sure that I can get there. And if traffic, you find it happens that traffic will come to a grinding halt,
Mhm.
and you can sit for an hour. What does that mean when it comes to how you would operate yourself in an EV environment?
Yeah. Or where you charge, with charging deserts out there and slow chargers, broken chargers. They're just, one of the things I spoke about, which I thought was interesting for this thing to happen by 2030, if it happens that way, faster or slower or whatever. But as of right now, today, just to keep up with that, 478 new charging stations, that's not even counting home charging stations, have to be installed every day for the next 8 years. And guess what? It's not happening. Not yet.
It's not. And I'm not ready to take the plunge yet. Put it that way.
Well, you know what? I'm not either. My wife talked about getting one, and that's fine. I saw this. I have to digress for a minute. So I saw the new Hummer and all electric vehicle. And I mean, it is a beast. It is an amazing piece of, technology, et cetera. It really is. But if you had a home charger, a level 1 charger, it takes 4 days to charge that thing. If you have a level 2, you can do it in about 24, maybe 36 hours. But to get a level 3, 35 to 50,000, and do you have is the infrastructure there to support it? What happens if the power grid goes down? I mean, there's so many different variables that kind of scare me, but you know what? It's coming.
It's coming.
It's a slow adoption. I think Charity did some educating with me on this, but just about anything new to the industry or period, you have to reach somewhere about a 5% adoption rate before mass adoption starts to take place. And we're real close. We're not quite there, but we're real close. And then, of course, we won't go into this. There's a lot of politics involved in that as well, too, obviously. So,
well, to me, it's the OEM decision as to what they're going to make. That's going to be a major factor in driving the speed of at least the new vehicle sale adoption.
I agree.
And a lot of the OEMs have gone, pretty full in.
Ford just committed over the next 5 years, $22 billion.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big commitment for an investment into something that may or may not make it. And by the time 5 years is up, those vehicles will go 800-900 miles on a charge.
Well, and what will happen when the battery needs to be replaced?
Recycling.
That's an element of cost of ownership that people aren't necessarily fully factoring into their decision, these days, because it hasn't happened or happened very often. But that will be expensive.
Expensive and dangerous.
Yeah.
Or it could be. I think it's 5% of batteries are recycled in the United States. So there's a lot of work to do there, particularly on the dangers and the leaks and a number of other things. But you know what? We're going to figure it out. One way or another, it's going to get figured out, or it'll go from lithium ion to something completely different. But for the foreseeable future, we're still going to sell, 12 to 15 million gas powered vehicles a year for the foreseeable future. Plenty of business for fixed operations. So don't worry about it. It's not a tsunami, and you'll adapt and overcome too. Matter of fact, if you just stop some of the bleeding that happens after the warranty period's up, it won't even be a second thought.
Exactly.
Because where are those people going to go with electric vehicles anyway? They're not going to Pep Boys, are they?
They'll take, the challenge is much greater, for the aftermarket, to adapt to, if you got one model, you can learn it. You can get the tooling necessary. If you're trying to service vehicles across the industry, it's a much more significant challenge for the aftermarket, which will tilt things back in the dealer's favor, at least for some time.
And not only that, but you have the new wave of Gen Z and Gen Yers coming into the market, and computers and technology. Instead of them thinking that they're going to be grease monkeys, there's a lot of opportunities if we're doing the right things to hire, attract, and retain the future of fixed operations as far as technicians are concerned. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and capacity, more technicians, the efficiency with which they work, that's going to be a major area of emphasis, I think, in the next number of years. That's what attracted me to Bailey as an example, was that's their focus is, how do you get the technician to be able to, instead of turning 8 hours or 10 hours, turn 12 or 14 hours in the course of a day by finding all the inefficiencies and getting rid of them. And that's the major, amazing opportunity, I think, in that area of focus.
I agree.
But if you look at, what can you do? Ed Roberts, who I think from Bozard, you look at the history of what he's been able to do, in a, I wouldn't say sleepy, but certainly not the most active area of the country. Went from 10 technicians when he got started, into the 90s. He would say there is no end, and the availability where people say you can't find them, he finds them.
Have you seen his facility?
I haven't seen it face to face.
Oh my gosh, it is a work of art. His whole philosophy, and I'm quite close to Ed. He's an amazing guy. He took me on almost a 2-hour tour. The shop, the way their expansion, how they hire and retain and move people up, with their skill set, and even with all the things we're talking about. Ed certainly goes there. It's all about your people, right? Lee Iacocca said it back in the day when he turned Chrysler around. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, you can sum all businesses up to 3 things: people, products, and profits, and most important of which are your people.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and he recruits from the high school level. He goes into high schools and
absolutely. And it isn't really a grease monkey job anymore.
Right.
It's a fairly sophisticated electronic, technician and electronic vehicle, and electronics troubleshooting is a large part of what they have to learn how to do. And, that's attractive to the younger generation.
It is.
And if you're smart, you're not building a shop that's uncomfortable to work in. You're putting air conditioning in if it's a hot climate, and making the environment conducive to having people want to work there.
I think that these newer, younger generation, yes, everybody likes to make money, but they also want to know that they're a part of something, and that they have time to enjoy and do the things, whatever it is. I'm finding that like Ed Roberts at Bozard and many other places that are adapting with flexibility in schedules and, daycare and a lot of things to make it much more attractive. But I think there's a huge paradigm shift, which you're obviously a part of, that's taking place, and things are changing. It's just not happening overnight. But I see where things have come the last 2 years since the pandemic, and the focus on fixed operations and the future of automotive. I remember, I got to share this story. I remember I was running a store. We just got our first website. This is back in like 1996 or something like that. Now, back then we had, unlike today, we had super fast dial-up AOL modems. Okay. And we're talking high tech. So this company approached us called AutoBytel, which I'm sure you remember hearing about.
Yeah.
And we had these internet leads that came, and we had a protected territory, and I would easily 8 or 9 out of 10 would drive with however far, 60, 80 miles, and they bought cars. And I'm telling you, the variable side just freaked out. Everybody freaked out. That's the end of automotive. That was the end. It was all over. Then Carvana. We could go on and on and on about all, but we're still here. We're still doing it. And we just need to adapt and overcome. Automotive people do that real well, don't you think, Les?
Exceptionally well. The entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that's one of the reasons why I don't think that it's going to be a conversion to factory-owned stores across the board. I think they realize, they've played with that enough times over the years to realize that if you give up on the entrepreneur, you've given up, probably too much of what makes the auto industry so great.
Yeah, that's a huge debate, but I agree. It's the entrepreneurs that made this whole thing happen anyway, right?
And the small to medium size group, is really the sweet spot. We have some great relationships with some of the humongous, but our sweet spot is the 5 to 30 rooftop, where you've got dealers that are looking for being able to share concepts across multiple platforms. They've got the funding to be able to make investments to do it. And that's the segment that I think is going to be the major growth segment.
That's interesting. I love that take, particularly for those size groups. Yeah, they're on the cutting edge. They're innovative, and they're really protective of what they're doing, aren't they?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you this next question, Les. And I got this from your roundtable discussion on EVs. So you had an example on there of how dealerships had a chance at one time to nudge out the aftermarket business, but they blew it. Yeah. And I wanted you to elaborate a little bit on that and maybe give us an example and relate that back to how that's a breaking point again with EVs.
Great question.
If you recall it, of course.
Oh, yeah. The reality is every car on the road was put on the road by a dealer. That's the only place they came from. Every car was put on the road by a dealer. And the dealer, instead of sitting down with that customer for 5-10 minutes like that dentist did with me and talking about what's my plan for my mouth and what's important to me, just ignored that opportunity and cast the customer base out and let them disappear. They didn't focus. The dealer's challenge is retention. They have the customer. Their whole strategy needs to be built around retention.
Amen.
The aftermarket, their challenge is conquest. And their whole business plan is to steal it away. But you don't compete by mimicking your competition strength. You compete by understanding your strength and doing the right job with the strengths you have. If you're not sitting down face to face with that customer every time they visit and spend a minute or two just in conversation around, we call it the magic question. What's your plan for the vehicle? Do you know what your plan is? If it's a lease, are you buying it out or are you giving it back? The answer to that question is one that has a major impact on what you might want to be recommending to the customer to do the best job for them. So, take the time to get to know the customer as a one-on-one relationship and offer the kind of service that is what they're looking for. And take the time before that customer leaves to make the home for that vehicle your dealership. And if you do that, then you're dealing from your strength of retention instead of letting them go and then being in the market advertising to bring them back.
That's so true. And the transparency, there's so many tools out there now for transparency. You don't have to be the highest, you don't have to be the lowest, but you have to build a relationship with them. You can't do that in 30s. You have to ask. I think customers I don't get that with my service department. I'll tell you right now, I have to tell them what my car is ready for. It's a real shame. Maybe it's because they know that I've been in the business a long time, or I don't really know, or they're intimidated. But we need to meet the customer where they're at and understand we have their best interest here. We really do. It's not just about shoving something down their throat. I think that's starting to change. Do you see that as well, don't you?
I do. Depending on the store and the level of I'll call it just general insight that the owner and the management team has towards how do you treat a customer. You can see in a lot of hospitality-based industries. I'm a lifetime, I think they call it titanium now, at Marriott.
Oh my gosh,
So
they treat you with golden gloves, don't they, Les?
and every time I go in, one of the first things they'll say is thank you for being a titanium loyal customer. Every desk clerk at every hotel, and I've been in hundreds and hundreds of them, they all know to say that. You can train people, to do the things that are essential in building a relationship, and just that thank you makes a difference to me.
Doesn't it? Me too. I don't know what a titanium is, I can tell you that, but the diamond elite or something like that. But no, that's up there with Marriott. I mean, that's the top of the top of the top. So they know as soon as you walk in who you are, don't they?
Yeah. And what does the service advisor know of the customer and their buying habits, when that customer comes through the door? And do they take advantage of that? Are they looking for, let's see, they got golf clubs in the trunk. What's the conversation that you could have around, when we were out last, how did that go? Spend the time to build the relationship.
Yeah.
And now, there are some that are going to use the kiosk. I'm a firm believer that you've got a customer base that's segmented. You've got a high touch customer base that wants the personal treatment. And you also have a high tech customer base that are the ones that use the ATM machines, very much. And whether you want to or not, you're going to become more comfortable using technology. When I go to my grocery store, at least half of the checkouts are self-service checkouts. And it takes a while to learn, to be comfortable. But once you do, I'm not going to stand in the line behind the basket of 100 items when I can go check myself out and be gone in 30 seconds.
Absolutely. When my wife and I go to Sam's Club, which is about once a week, we're checking out as we're getting stuff. We don't even we can just walk right out. It's on they just scan the QR code. It's really, I was thinking about what you said a minute ago, when a minivan comes in with 3 car seats in it. I mean, you have to know what's important to them. That's an easy conversation to get started, right? I mean, safety, kids. I mean, you can go on and on and on with that one, right?
If you take the time and if you're aware, the part of your job is to notice and to look for those things, and to spend a minute in the chit chat. People think that's non-productive. It's not non-productive. It's probably the most important. I like to call it the 1-minute insurance policy. Spend a minute to get to know the customer. You'll get great dividends on that use of that minute. Because if something goes wrong towards the end of the day, if you took the time to spend a little bit of time getting to know that customer at the beginning of the day, you've got a chance to survive it. Otherwise, you don't.
Yeah, I think about going back, probably the same for Charity and you and all of us. When somebody takes the time and shows interest in me, and not just listening to understand, not necessarily to respond, I develop longer relationships with them regardless of whatever it is. So I think that's going to be the key. That's one of the keys, right? Meeting the customer, being transparent and developing a relationship with them. You can have the restaurants, you can have the latest massage, you can have all the things that some of these stores have. But if you're not taking care of your people, and that includes your technician and advisors, and they're not taking care of the customer, the guest, the client, whatever you want to call it, you're done.
Totally. And when it comes to pricing, you don't need to be the cheapest.
Nope.
But you do need to be proud of your pricing with the value proposition that you have. We often install dare to compare pricing boards where, you don't have to be at the low end, at the very bottom of every price of everything. And if you show the customer, hey, here's where we're at, and we're $5 more, but go back to the lounge and have yourself a cup of coffee, spend the time watching the TV, get yourself a donut. These are all part of the value proposition that more than makes up for that, that $5 if you're transparent about it. And most people will go, yeah, that's okay. There'll be a few super cheapies, but
yeah, very few, and they'll be your worst nightmares anyway. I'll pay more, less, won't you? Charity, won't you? I'll pay more if there's value associated, even if it's not the lowest. I'll just, if they do, the less objection I have to price, the better job they do at building value. Just totally. It's that simple.
I was with one dealer one time who said, hey, I don't want all the business. I just want all the profitable business. And
yeah. I'm not trying to take a trip to Tahiti on this deal, or whatever. No, I think that's great. Charity, did you have, I know we're getting close here, and we have something we do kind of special at the end with you that we hope you participate in.
So what we do, Les, is we do these quick fire questions, which are pretty quick. You might have to do it this time, Russell.
Okay.
Fussing a little bit, but they're supposed to be fun and more.
Yeah. I wish we had more time too. Yeah. Okay, here we go. What's been your favorite job over your career?
What I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Being able to get a broad view of what's going on, and be able to be a mentor, more than being a doer.
Yeah, I've learned, I'd like to elaborate on that a second. I learned a valuable lesson a long, long time ago. We all have our stories, defining moments, crossroads, whatever you want to call it. But Zig Ziglar made a huge impact in my life. And I got to spend some time with him and meet him and do a devotional with him in his office in Dallas before he passed away. And it's all, if you really do help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want and you'll be a lot happier. What do you think the world will look like 20 years from now?
Ask me that question once we see what happens with Ukraine and Russia, and I mean, these are there's some major potential things going on that are troubling, and you've got somebody that's got the power in Russia to start the unthinkable.
That's right.
Does that happen, or do we somehow come off the edge? But it's worrisome to me that you've got that situation going in the direction that it's going, and the more the Ukrainians succeed in pushing him back, potentially the more desperate he becomes.
I agree.
And what will he do? I think it's going to play out over the next few months, and we'll see.
Yeah, it can be. We could do a segment just on that one alone. Things can change in a second with that. I agree. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. Hope we find a equitable solution to this here sooner than later. The longer it goes on, I think it's more detrimental. What's your favorite color, Les, and what might that color say about you?
My favorite color is blue, and that I would say it's a color of calmness, and I think one of the things that is a good characteristic that I've been fortunate to have is calmness. So I don't get too high, I don't get too low. Just tell me what's going on. Let's fix it.
Yeah. I wish I had that. I don't, but I'm a lot better the older I get. So just because I focus on it. If you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self something today, what would it be?
Pleasant persistence is the key to success.
Persistence. Yep.
Persistence.
Persistence outweighs resistance, doesn't it?
It outweighs everything.
It does. Les, we got a couple minutes left, but you have the floor, sir. We are anything you'd like to say, et cetera, it's yours. Say whatever you'd like to say about you, about your company, helping people, et cetera. It's up to you.
Well, I would just want to say that, in the 40 years that I've been in this industry, I've met tremendous number of great people, had the opportunity to work with literally thousands of folks over the course of the years, and have enjoyed it immensely. It's been a privilege to be part of this industry, and plan to stick with it as long as I can.
Well, thank you very much. Les Silver, everybody out there. You'll see him in droves here in about 3 weeks. Is that about right, Charity? Something like that. He'll be everywhere.
I'll have to look. I think we're looking toward December.
December. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, find all you can find out about. Perhaps you'll plug in, you'll hear some things that you didn't know about Les Silver. Check out Dynatron, like us, like him, love him, share him, make comments, whatever you'd like to do. Just engage, because that's what it's about. It's about fixed operations. It's about people. In the end, it's all about the people. And let's stay on top of the cutting edge stuff that's going on out there. Once again, thank you everybody for another successful episode of WTF, and that's what the Fixed Ops. Les Silver, we are so humbled and honored and grateful to have you on today. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Thank you, Charity. Nice spending time with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this episode of WTF. We come up with new episodes and shorts all the time. We launch them on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all of your favorite podcasting networks. And we'd like to ask for your support. Please head over to our LinkedIn company page, like and follow us there. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. We have a strong lineup of automotive experts coming your way. We don't want you to miss it. Thank you so much.